The greatest lesson I've learned on failure stems from my own personal life, that sometimes what you fail at might be leading you to your next big thing.
702.
The upside of failure.
Proof that a setback can lead to a step forward.
The upside of failure, as we do on a Friday. And you can stream live. If you head over to YouTube, you'll be able to see us live in studio for the first time for this feature, meaning you don't have to wait for the video to drop, but we will still drop the video and do as we do with our podcast. Stay tuned to primemediaplus.com or download the Prime Media Plus app. Now, today's upside of failure guest is somebody who has had quite an interesting journey and career, but now sits as the CEO of Proudly South African. And we look forward to taking your calls with your questions and comments on 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Ntate Eustace Mashimbye joins us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you yourself. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. And I mean, I was just saying earlier, I feel like this might be your most relaxed interview.
Yes. Definitely is.
The most relaxed.
Especially this week.
So I really want to just get an understanding of kicking off with Proudly South African, so we get context of your role. I think sometimes there is confusion around the role of Proudly South African versus the role of Brand SA. Just bring us into the fore as to what is Proudly South African and your job as the CEO. What is like your key objective in the business?
So Proudly South African is the country's buy local campaign. It's a national buy local campaign, and what we seek to do is to ensure that as people make purchasing decisions, whether in their homes, in their businesses, as well as those who are employed, whether in the private sector or public sector, as they make those purchasing decisions, they choose locally made products. They prioritize those, and the intention is to ensure that those businesses that make those products are able to be sustained as a result of that purchasing decision. And as a result, we hope that jobs can be retained, and that as there is a need for them to produce more as a result of us buying from them, they will then be in a position to create new job opportunities. And basically that's it. I mean, we do a lot of work in the private sector, a lot of work in the public sector, and then what people see is the consumer-facing activities that we undertake. We do a lot of activations, things like walk the talk. You'll find us there. And with our messaging saying, as you walk, and you think about your life, also think about what you're going to do to contribute to the greater good of growing this country, growing the economy, creating jobs. And so that's what Proudly South African is about. And in terms of what I am meant to do is to, as part of the broader objective of the campaign, is to ensure that, I first manage the organization. I'm the accounting officer. And over and above that is to ensure that we have a way in which we get policy at a public sector level to favor local content as much as possible. And in the private sector is to engage at a policy level those who are responsible for crafting policies and procurement practices for corporates to also consider favoring local in those policies. And obviously, the last segment of the work that we do focuses on consumers. What we have done, though, and that has been a big part of the work that I've been doing, is to create a way in which consumers can access locally made products, and consumers coming from all sectors of society. So those three sectors that I touched on, the public sector, the private sector, as well as ordinary consumers, need to have a way in which they can buy local. If they make that conscious choice to say, we are going to buy local, they need to know where to find it.
So what is your response when people bring up the fact that local's not always the cheapest? And this obviously applies to various sectors. I don't want to pick one specific one, but I think it's an opportunity maybe for everybody to understand what that 1 rand can equate to that's spent on local versus 1 rand going overseas.
Our response is standard all the time, is that if you're looking to buy a luxury good, And I hear you don't want to choose a specific sector. I will choose a specific sector. So let's pick clothing and textile.
I knew it.
because most of the time when that argument comes up, it's about
because
food,
of that. Yes.
it's about health and beauty products, and then it's clothing and textiles. So let's choose clothing and textile because everyone can relate. If you want a luxury good and you are willing to pay 50,000 rands to those brands that diamond work, why do you think it's problematic for you to pay for a luxury good that is made in South Africa and that costs you 30,000 rand? So it's about which segment of the market does the product you are attempting to buy fall. I mean, if you want to buy a product that is of high quality nature, you must be willing to spend. And our argument stands because we have tested it over and over and over again. We have members across all sectors of society. We have members across all segments of different markets. We have a membership base that represents 26 different sectors. And I can tell you that where you compare apples with apples, where the quality is exactly the same, we hold our own. And even in terms of pricing, yes, you can't divorce the conversation of getting people to buy local from price and quality and competitiveness. That we understand. But that remains a perception that, for me, is largely untested. It's not true because people are comparing a Maxhosa with another product that is not a luxury good like it.
Can I actually just say what I think could possibly be part of the issue? And this is a conditioning of us as South Africans. And I could be totally wrong, but I almost feel like in the sense that we can't imagine that something of our hands can equate to luxury. So much so that when we think about status, it is never anything South African. Unless you know, guys, Tebe Magugu, Richim Nisi, like those are Lugs Maxhosa with Laduma. But I don't know if that makes sense. It still takes a while for people to understand. They will be fighting, why is a Batu sneaker X amount of rands? Do you think that it is a conditioning that as South Africans, we don't see anything we do as luxurious?
So you're spot on. I think I must take you with the next time I have those interviews with those stations where the producer, the presenter is a localization or local procurement naysayer, because there are many of them. And the reason why I say that is because we have seen over the years that the shift from ordinary South Africans towards locally made products took long. It took long to take off. I mean, I've been doing this for 9 years, and I can tell you, it has taken long for it to get to where it is now. And I think that reluctance did not come from the fact that we did not have the products available. I mean, you think about how long ago auction culture came out. I mean, Vanya, may her soul rest in peace. Think about how long ago Sun Goddess came out.
Yes.
You know, so we've always had them. But I think that sense of economic patriotism is only really being invoked in South Africans now. And I think the COVID-19 pandemic had a lot to play with it. You know, when the pandemic happened, a lot of our traditional sources of supply had their borders closed, and some of the products that we consume could not necessarily get to us, especially when it comes to food products. So our security of supply was questioned for a bit there. And we had to survive on locally made products. Think about what you put in your trolley when you go to your favorite grocery store. A lot of those products that we consumed during that time were products made in South Africa. So that shift started happening then, and a lot of entrepreneurs started pivoting towards other products that they would make because they saw the gap. Because entrepreneurship really is about finding a gap and coming up with a solution. And so that has really helped make a lot more products available, and social media plays a part as well. And so the more you see others saying, here's a locally made product, I love it, it's brilliant, and then you see others jump onto it. So
it's almost like you have to lie and not tell people it's local. And once they buy into the hype, then reveal because of a certain conditioning. But I just, before we park the Proudly South African, do you recall the introduction of Zianda appliances, which they announced it like in 2018? And it was supposed to be these luxury kitchen appliances. And they were so beautifully made in the sense that, I didn't see it in person, but it looked like it was based on the three food. So the kettle, the toasters, and this is, if you remember this.
I remember that.
Now, a brand like this, for whatever reason, didn't make it, right? And we don't know what the reasons are. It might not be capital. It could be an issue with IP. We don't know. But if somebody that is South African says, you know what, Relebogile, I'm listening to you guys talking. I've had an idea for a luxe brand, and I have these thoughts in whatever industry. What advice would you give to them to get the necessary support? Because it's tough out there. It's really tough.
It's really tough. I've been there. I know.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
It's tough, but there are solutions. The solution that we provide as Proudly South African is really that one of access to markets, because a lot of those brands go down because they don't have a fighting chance in the different markets that they intend to sell their products. And a lot of the times you find that they are not given even a chance to be on a retail shelf, because you can only go on a shelf if you can prove that when your product is given that shelf space, it will sell and it will fly off the shelves. Otherwise, it is considered to be taking space from a product that could be doing well.
Yes.
And so that's the role of Proudly South African, is to ensure that we hold hands with all of these providers like Zianda. That's something we could have supported if it was part of the Proudly
What
SA
happened to
campaign.
Sbu Socks?
So Sbu Socks was also a member of Proudly South African, and Sbu is still there. I see he's making cars these days. And
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, I must check up, because as we're talking, I'm like, there's so many businesses, but it just goes to show how tough business really is. So speaking of how tough it is, before you became the CEO, you also were a budding entrepreneur. Tell us about those ventures and what happened or what didn't happen.
Yeah, more like what didn't happen. I mean, as early as when I left school, I together with friends of mine, we dabbled into targeting universities, because we had just come out of a tertiary institution. We targeted tertiary institutions. We hosted, the Freshers Ball, the Spring Bash, the Miss Banbani. We did a lot of those in Gauteng. And it came with its own, it looks shiny and bright from the outside, but the politics in there, from engaging with the SRC leaderships and the actual schools themselves, the management of the institutions, and we kept investing with the hope that the sponsors would come, and at times they did come, because they do target that students, some of these brands, but we lost so much during that time, but because our model was just wrong. We kept throwing money at these things and utilizing our own money to host a lot of these things, and we lost a lot of money. I then left that,
Why do you say the model was wrong? Because for me, the moment you said whatever issues internally, to me, it sounds like you had to go and lobby, because in that environment, which is highly political, we know that the youth leagues of the different political parties are very active from the moment a person enters as a freshman or the first year, they're already there. So what do you think went wrong? Because I think that's such a big business lesson in understanding the market you're going into, which in that space, it's almost like, you can't go and produce Shaga Ilembe without speaking to the royal family. So you can pour all this money. If now after the fact you go to the royal family and they say, no, you don't have our blessing, what can happen?
A few lessons. The first one that I touched on, that which is a common one: never use your money for those kind of things. I think that's the first mistake we made.
Whose money are we using though?
You're not supposed to use your own money. Remember, the event belongs to the institution. The institution is supposed to fund the event. The market that is the students is a market that is seen as viable for someone who has a product that is targeted at that segment of the market. And so you must use that money. There are people who have budgets for those kind of things. And I think that's why I'm saying our model was wrong. We, in an effort to try too much to prove to the institutions that we will do this thing and it will be as you want it, we made a choice to say, whatever we have at our disposal, we will throw into it. And remember, we had just started working. And so a lot of it was debt. It was credit cards. It was overdrafts. And so we made those mistakes.
What a hot mess.
It was a hot mess. and some of the sponsorships never happened. And I remember at some stage we owed a security company, and the guy came and my car was paid up at the time. My brother I love my brothers. One of my brothers gave me a car that had 2 more years to be paid. So I just finished paying it off. And the guy came to collect his cash. And I didn't have it, and he wanted to take my car. He's still alive, though. I saw him the other day. And I was like, dude, do I na?
What's on socials?
No, it's
Oh
on
my
Mamelodi.
God.
It's on Mamelodi. But I went to a funeral last weekend. So I saw the guy. I was like, hey, I won't say his name because it's very popular. But when I saw him, it brought back all of this. I was like, yo, yeah.
And you know what's so scary about what you're sharing? I mean, I have businesses where I'm just pouring my own money in, and I'm moving on a woman a prayer. What would you say then to all the people listening who are like, yo, whose money should we be using? Because some things I can understand in your situation why it wasn't supposed to be your money. Unless you're also saying, guys, don't start with money you don't actually have.
Yes.
Like if you're dipping into personal loans and things and sponsors say, I got you, and then come time to deliver. It happens all the time where sponsors will say tentative yes, it's a go. When are you move? And they're sending logos, but the money is not being sent.
And that happened to us. In fact, one of the events we had in the Val was we had that problem where the money just never came from the sponsor, and you can chase and chase. I mean,
Did they get the mileage already?
Let me tell you, my first encounter with Mdu and Malike, I owed Mdu, I owed Malike. I remember you deal with the managers up to a point where the acts themselves start finding your number and they start calling you. My business partners and I went through that. But to come back to your question around whose money you should use, it depends on the industry.
Yes.
With this industry that I'm talking about, it's a different story. Because I've went through a few. I can tell you there are instances where you have to pour your own money, but there are instances where there is money in the country available. Maybe it's because of the work that I do daily. There are grants available for manufacturers because a lot of our efforts are concentrated on labor-intensive sectors, and there are grants in the country. There are loans across the road from here. There's the likes of IDC. I mean, we hosted earlier this year a funding symposium together with the Gauteng Department of Economic Development, and we had 20 different funders available to more than 2,000 entrepreneurs who walked through the doors of the Buy Local Summit, which is our flagship event. And the intention was to expose these funders to, and it was funding for different types of things, generic funding, sector-based funding. And so there is funding available. You just have to package your offering such that if there is funding, you can access, especially the ones that have a cocktail of a grant and a loan.
I got you.
Yeah.
So what is the one mistake you'd say that you've observed that people make when requesting funding or support? Is it that they don't have documents ready? Is it that, somebody might bump into you in reception and say, yo, I need help. Now you say, okay, send X, Y, and Z to this email. What is the common thing that you're seeing is the mistake that people are making?
The biggest mistake that I see people making, that's my opinion, look, some will go for me. I think we are just not patient enough to package our things such that that it's not going to be overnight success. Be patient enough to package it, to find the markets. Because remember, the funder will only fund you if they have absolute certainty that they will get their money back. And so that certainty comes with a customer. You must demonstrate who your customer is. I have a lot of success stories that I go through daily where companies that affiliate with us come and say, here is the business plan that we have, here's the product that we have, vet it, put it on the Proudly SA portals and platforms and whatever else you have. And then on the back of that, help us access markets. And we will use then those markets that you are giving us to go access money. We have a lot of those success stories. So invest time. Invest in organizations like us. People say it's expensive. I know I keep deferring back to Proudly South African.
Yes.
It's second nature.
Yes.
When you've done this for so long. But 500 rands for an SMME that makes turnover up of 5 million rands and below, it's not too much. 500 rands per annum. It's not big, and it's not too big an investment. So invest in your business. Invest in the right things. Find the right networks. Find the right people who are also doing the same thing. There are mentors everywhere. I think I've been able to stay here because I've had great mentors. And I think that the businesses that I've subsequently had where I've done well is because I've had mentors and people who understand. And I did not want to hold on to 100% of everything like I did previously.
We do when we're young because the lesson that we need to learn from that is 100% of nothing is nothing. And sometimes we want to hold things to ourselves. Whereas if somebody says, okay, give me 49%, I'm going to pour this much in. Do you think many people are not willing to let go? Or not even willing to let go, but surrender parts of the business that require it to grow?
In fact, the latter part is the correct one, because you need to know what your competencies are. And sometimes you might think you know, but you don't know. And that's why, I mean, those who work with me know I'm the best person that I know in terms of delegation. And sometimes I delegate not because I have to delegate, but I delegate because I know that the next person probably will do it better than I would, and I consult a lot. And some say it's over consulting, but it has brought us to where we are in terms of turning the organization around. So the same applies to your business. You must surround yourself with people who understand and who know that industry you are in, but more than anything, where you need to let go of certain parts, even if it means letting go of shareholding, do it. The ventures I'm in now, I'm a non-executive director because I have a day-to-day job. I have 25% here, 25% there. And the 75% belongs to other people who know better than I do. And so those are the lessons I've carried with me from back in the days with the multiple ventures that I started, and they're all closed. And I consider them my failures, but there were many lessons in all of them.
We're going to go to the news. When we come back, I want to hear more about those business failures as we continue with the upside of failure.
Spend your afternoon
With Relebogile Mabotja.
on 702.
Word.
11 minutes to 3 o'clock, the upside of failure with the CEO of Proudly South African, Eustace Mashimbye. And he's been sharing with us some of his journeys and challenging failures through business. But we take your calls on 011 8830702, the WhatsApp line 0727021702. Eustace, I hope you and I are aligned, Jorge. Even though this is your personal interview, we've spoken a lot about business, so there will be calls, I'm sure, that are going to be Proudly South African related. Are we allowed?
We are allowed.
We are allowed. Resego in Johannesburg, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Go ahead, Resego.
First of all, Ntate Eustace, it's refreshing to hear someone who's been through some of the things that I've also been through. It was very funny that you spoke about an office. That's part of the reasons why I failed in my last business. But anyway, I think with going back to Proudly South African products, what I realized, because I used to manufacture clothing, what I realized is, yes, it's good and proper to start manufacturing and making Proudly South African products, but there seems to be the biggest issue that I came across was the fact that apart from me making products for certain brands and clients, just accessing the broader market was hard because unlike, for instance, the stone cherries of yesterday and Lokshin culture, I could not get a hold of shelf space or an offtake agreement of any sort. So I think it's not so much the model or anything, it's just about the access to market that as more especially young entrepreneurs are not given, right? And then we end up in situations like I think it was Trip where you have to go get funding for capital outlay to put in your own stores, which does hamper a relatively new locally produced or locally founded business. And then the second thing is my comment on the luxury market. I think we tend to forget that the luxury market, especially when you take something like Zianda appliances, which is based on our heritage or things that we used to use, like at Food, for instance. We'd like to support that, but the price points are just too high for us. I don't think South Africa on a mass scale is ready to, it does want to support, locally produced luxury goods, but we simply do not have the disposable income.
But can I ask you a question, Resego? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are so many people who I might be putting my foot in my mouth, I know are earning significantly less than me that own tons of Smeg appliances. So for me, the reason I don't agree that Zianda is too expensive, Smeg it has such a big market in South Africa.
So I'm not saying that it's too expensive, right? Let me rephrase what I said. What I'm saying is, should the next appliance manufacturer not try to put their price points maybe at a DeFi or a Hisense?
But then it takes it out of the market of luxury goods, and I think that's the part that we were sharing. But thank you, Resego. Will you respond then, Tate Eustace?
Yes. I think I want to mostly respond to the access to market part. That's why Proudly South African exists, is to make sure that we create opportunities for the businesses that he's talking about to thrive. This week, that's why when you started and you said it's my most relaxed interview, and I said yes, because this week we launched the online store, and there's been naysayers. But the reason why we launched the online store is to ensure that producers like him, who produce products and struggle to get access to shelf space, can come on to the online store at no cost, list your product. We drive traffic. Our job is to drive traffic to that online store, the first of its kind, because there are many online stores, but it's the only one where the products are all locally made. SMME, rural-based, township-based, doesn't matter. As long as you go through a vetting process with us, and we can vouch for a product in terms of the quality, because we vet for quality and compliance with whatever is set out for that industry, and that the product is indeed made in South Africa, you can sell your product on our online stores. So that's why we exist. And the other thing that I want to encourage others to do, and it's part of my lesson, but it's another business, is contract manufacturing helps. So you don't have to have resources for you to lay out the capital yourselves. There are instances where you go to a contract manufacturer and you ask them to produce your product for you whilst working on getting to a point where you can then set up your own factory. That's another advice that I would give today that I've learned with another business. You don't have to make everything yourself.
All right, we've got your voice notes on 0727021702.
Good morning, good afternoon, 702. Trust you guys are well and blessed. Thanks for the conversation of Proudly South African. I want to know, are they genuinely open to support local businesses to get product out there? Or it's just like Department of Small Business, you find it's just a show, you don't see the real effect of change? Please, I would love an answer there. Be blessed indeed. Bye-bye.
I and the team, I think Proud SA need to start educating its stakeholders on how to price their product or on pricing, because you find a product that is produced next door more expensive than a product that has been imported, despite the fact that those imports have already paid import duty to be in the country. David.
Ooh, interesting ones.
I love those because that's what I deal with daily. So let's start with the latter one. Products that come into the country from countries like China, and let's be bold and call out China,
Yes.
sometimes are subsidized from where they come from. So there's an export subsidy that is given to these guys to send their products into South Africa. And so despite the fact that there's duties levied on them, that's why we've been fighting against this de minimis rule to be applied to products that are bought from the likes of Shein and Timo, because they're still relatively much cheaper, despite the fact that we're still levying tariffs on them.
Yes.
And they break the parcel such that they don't attract the required levies. So that's not always true. South African products, based on our experience, and we have thousands of products that are listed with us, are priced based on the input cost, which is the cost that it costs the manufacturer to produce the product, and then there's a margin, and so we can't expect people to be in business and not make money. People go into business to make money. That margin is what is going to help keep their businesses open. And so it's not always true that we don't price correctly. We are now on that journey, especially with the online store, where we've delved into the pricing of the products that are listed on our online store. People can go there, shop.proudlysa.co.za. There's thousands of products already.
Also, people are already paying 900% on like iPhones and things when we know the cost to make them. And I mean, I'm guilty of following some of the cults of like certain devices and things. Where I'm not going to agree with is the fact that people don't have disposable income. Those that want luxury goods or certain things will pay the money for them. In closing, what is the greatest lesson you've learned on failure?
So I've had many failures. It's a pity we're out of time. The greatest lesson I've learned on failure stems from my own personal life, that sometimes what you fail at might be leading you to your next big thing. I failed to become a CA. I had a dream to be a CA. I could not do that, but
It's not too late.
no. But if I had gone that route, I would not be where I am because not going that route turned me into a marketer, and that's how a combination of having both my finance qualifications and expertise and the marketing background that I acquired over time placed me here, and so that was a failure, but it has led me to where I am. The other failure is I failed in keeping a marriage, but it has led me to the marriage I'm in now.
Yes.
In fact, that part of my life helped build a strong bond between my kids and I, because for the longest of time, I then spent time with my kids, and because I had taken advantage of the fact that, they're here in the house, but the minute there was that split, I made a commitment to say I'm going to spend a lot of time with my kids. So the success is always look at what is beyond that failure, and I think that's the biggest lesson.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for coming.
702.
The upside of failure.
Proof that a setback can lead to a step forward.